What's up guys, welcome to Poor Man Mods. Today we're going to show you how to install two-step in your Mini Cooper. We're actually going to be installing an N2MB WOT box in our 2008 Mini Cooper. So this video will really only pertain to the Mini Cooper. The device that we're using is pretty universal though, so if you were to buy this and you had a manual transmission car, you can probably find instructions on how to put it in your car. Many years ago I did the same install on my 2006 Spec V, but the installation process was very different. Same product though. So you can probably get this for any manual transmission car, you just gotta figure out how to wire it up. And this video will only be for the Mini Cooper. So the kit that we got came with the WOT box. This lets you do two-step, not anti-lag, and you can do wide open throttle shifting as well. It comes with a programming cable and a whole wiring harness. We're gonna do something a little different though. This is a head unit connector, right?
Yeah, automotive grade quick connect.
This is just a connector with a male and female on each side, and we're going to try to make this to where we can easily uninstall it from the car. If we have to pull the engine out of the car, we want to be able to just unplug it and plug it back in. So we're going to try to make it super easy for us in the future if anything goes wrong. Yeah, so this connector, it's only going to allow us to remove the harness and the engine from the car. It's not going to remove the box from the car. This basically is only for if we have to pull the engine in the future for whatever reason. So you don't necessarily have to do this, but if you run into a situation where the engine has to come out or you have to pull the harness, this might make it easier on you in the future. So that being said, let's get over to the Mini and install it.
Alright guys, so we're going to start off in the engine bay. I'm going to show you around a couple things that we're going to do. At this point we have basically everything taken off to where we need to start installing stuff. So if you want to follow along here, Freddy. Obviously, the first thing you're gonna do, unhook the battery. We're gonna be working with wiring. We don't wanna mess anything up, so unhook the battery. After the battery comes off or is unhooked, or even after, even before you unhook the battery, you can take off everything across here. There's a big shroud that goes across, and that will require you to take off the windshield wipers. They're not too bad to get off. I kind of put a screwdriver up underneath of them and got Tony to help me bang them with a plastic rubber mallet, and they came off pretty easy. So you're gonna need to get that all the way off, and the reason for that is because we're going to put the WOT box inside of the car. So this grommet over here is where the wires are gonna feed through. The WOT box is not weather safe, so it needs to be kept somewhere where it'll be dry, and also because it has the serial port that you'll plug into your computer to connect it and configure it. I figured the easiest way to do that's sitting in the driver's seat. So we're gonna mount it inside the car, run all of the wires through this main grommet here, which is pretty easy to get to, despite the fact there isn't a lot of room. And then those wires are gonna wrap around, and there is down in here somewhere, we'll show you when we get to it, a good spot to run those wires through this semi-plastic firewall thing. And then all the wires are gonna come up here to the main ECU where we're going to make all of our taps. Now the biggest difference in what we're doing and the way we're wiring this up is typically, and the way Freddy did it originally, you would run all of the wires from the WOT box to the individual, you would run the wires to the individual sensor or circuit depending on where they are. So with this install we're going to be tapping the ignition circuit, the clutch circuit, the accelerator pedal, and we need the crank position sensor for the RPM signal. So the biggest difference is that we're gonna run all of the wires right here to where they come from the ECU instead of spreading them all over the place, running one to the accelerator pedal, one to the clutch, one to the crank sensor, things like that. All of those wires come back to here, so we're just gonna run all of them together, bring them to here, and that's where we're gonna put our quick disconnect. So we'll go over the details as we get it all wired up, but we're gonna start with going inside the car and pushing the wires through and getting them into the engine bay. All right, so we're inside the car now. We're gonna get these running. Give you a little pro tip. This is something I do in all my cars. Since we're running the WOT box wiring through the firewall, I'm also gonna run a cigarette lighter extension. And what I'm gonna do is run this to the battery, and then I can hook in one of those cigarette lighter to USB converters and run phone chargers off of it that are directly connected to the battery. I really like that because if I wanna like run in the store or something like that, I can just leave my phone plugged in, keeps charging, it only draws about 2 amp. Run it straight to the battery, then you don't have to worry about like the accessory on and off. So I'm gonna run that at the same time. Got all these wires bundled up here to the end. All right, so here's our blue pull wire pushed through the grommet. And if you want to come around here, see I got the blue wire hanging down right here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap this up.
And pull it through. I can pull.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, so we got the wires run through the grommet, and now they're coming inside of this little area by the brake booster. And if you look right down in here, there's a little grommet that runs through this plastic firewall and comes out on the back side down behind this fuse box. And then I ran it underneath of the fuse box and then brought it up underneath so I can make all of my connections right here in line. So next we're gonna start taking these off, and I'll show you how that's done. So this one doesn't have the plastic clip, but we'll go through that. Each of these electrical connectors is gonna have a safety, so you're gonna push down on this little tab, and that will allow this top piece to slide forward. And then on the side here is where it's gripping the tab. So as you push this, it will pull itself up, and when it goes all the way down, you can pull it out. So in order to get this black plastic cover off of the back of the connector, there's two little prongs on the sides right here. Right there. There's one on each side. You're gonna pry them out and work this straight up.
It's tight.
It's very tight, and you probably need help. Probably gonna need an extra set of hands. It slides in this groove right here. If you pry those two little pins out, you can slide this up, and that will help you identify the proper cable, the proper wires that you're gonna connect into. All right, so it's kind of complicated to find the right wires that you're gonna need. So we're gonna throw up a table on the YouTube video. So somewhere right in here. Screenshot that, and then you'll be able to follow along with what I'm gonna say next. So there are 3 main connectors. The larger connectors have 52 different plugs, and there's one smaller connector that has 32 plugs. The easiest place to start is by finding the middle connector off of the ECU. This middle connector, which is in the bundle with 2 connectors on it. The other one's a body harness by itself. This main connector has a main big green wire in the number 5 position. That is the injector signal. This is the injector signal wire. So this is the only wire that you're gonna need off of this entire harness. So if you identify this one, it'll help you to identify the other 2, because this one's 32 prongs and this one's 52 prongs. And you'll see all of that in the table as far as the numbers of the pinouts that you need to find. So this green wire off of the Watt box harness is going to get cut in 2, and you're going to have the red wire connect to where the wire comes out of the ECU, and you're going to have the orange wire coming out of the Watt box connect to the other side of the green wire. So on the smaller connector, there's one white wire in pin number 13. That is the crankshaft that is the crankshaft input sensor, and that is going to give you your RPM signal. Off of the Watt box harness, that's going to tee in to the yellow wire. So you're not cutting this wire. You can cut it, but you're gonna have to make sure it's connected back together. The previous green wire we talked about is the only one that gets cut and not reconnected. All the rest of these connections are a T. So you just wanna tap the signal off of this wire and capture it on the yellow wire. On the final connector, you're gonna be looking for the clutch input wire, which is pin number 39, and that is the black and red wire, which is right here. And that is where you're going to tee in the green wire from the Watt box harness. Watt box harness. Your last wire is on pin number 35 on the same connector. This is the body harness again that's closest, the first main connector spot. and that is going to be a white wire with a brown stripe, and that goes to your throttle position sensor, and that is where you're going to tee in the blue wire from the Watt Box harness. All right, so we wired in the quick disconnect, and I'm going to tuck this down in here.
So like we said earlier, that is completely optional. That is just so we can disconnect the harness here and pull the engine out if we want. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, the idea is that the Watt Box is inside the car, so instead of having to cut it and pull all those wires back, if we want to take the engine with the harness out, I can just disconnect it there, and then the one side goes with everything, and then the rest of it can stay. So we got everything all wired up, and the way we did this was with male and female spade connectors, so that you can disconnect it and reconnect it stock, basically on the fly. Like if you have any problems, or if you want to get rid of it, whatever. The only thing that really matters is this ignition coil wire where we tapped in here, because this is now flowing through the Watt Box. So if you have any problems, all you got to do is disconnect and then plug these two wires together, and all the rest of them are just tees in. So this will take the ignition out of the Watt Box as a variable and reconnect it directly to the ECU.
All the other connections are just like this, male and female spade connector on each side, with one of the wires from the Watt Box going to the other. So this is basically teeing in, but if you wanted to remove the Watt Box, you can cut this wire off, and this is still connected without any issues. The very last thing, there is a black ground wire for the Watt Box. You can see it right there. We have it running up towards the clutch pedal. This is just roughly installed for now, just to test out the box, but you can run it somewhere else and make it nicer, but this is just for testing. But do not forget that black ground wire. If you do, the car won't run. Ask us how we know. All right, so Brad is tidying up everything. It is time to hear this thing step.
All right guys, so we got the car out here in Mexico, and we're going to demonstrate the launch control, and then we're going to take a little drive and show you how the flat foot shifting works. So the flat foot shifting is really pretty easy, and it's just the way it's advertised. You just don't lift. The only caveat is that you have to be full throttle. So go all the way down to the floor, hold it full throttle, and then you're just gonna keep it there and do your shift. Obviously you want to do it as quick as possible. It doesn't have an RPM that it sets at, it just knows that you're full throttle, and then when you push the clutch in, it knows that you're doing a flat foot shift. So you just shift as quick as you can and you don't lift. And we'll show you how it's configured and everything, but I don't think you can change the cut time. There's a cut time built in where it's cutting ignition when you do that. So it looked like it was grayed out, but we'll show you the settings that we set everything up with.
And it's super smooth in this car.
Yeah, it's actually really, really smooth. Anytime I floor the car, and I'm flooring the car, and I'm going to shift and floor it again, and I'm just accelerating as fast as I can, I'm flat foot shifting all the time, because it actually is smoother than if I had to let off, shift, and get back on it. It just works perfectly.
Yeah. Super smooth.
Super smooth.
Nice.
So like we said, you can really do it at any RPM. Whenever you're ready to shift, you just leave it mashed and you shift, and it works as advertised. Didn't work too good in first though. So it's pretty straightforward and simple. Most important thing is Mazda Speed 3 setting, uncheck clutch inverted, set your RPM and enable it, and enable the no lift shift with auto, and write that to the box.
All right guys, got the N2MB WOT box installed in the Mini. Brad did a really good job of installing it. Looks pretty much factory right there. You can't even tell it's installed. Works really good. I think the car sounds awesome. It's, looking at it, It seems really complicated and kind of scary to do it, but once you look at the diagram and you figure out which wires you're tapping into, it's really not that big of a deal. You just got to take your time with it, you know, be very careful of what you're doing and make it reversible like we did with the spade connectors. If you just go in there and solder stuff and something doesn't work right or you messed up, that can cause a lot of headache. So I recommend doing it the way we did with the spade connectors and making it reversible. Car sounds awesome, couldn't be happier with it. I will have a link in the description for the WOT box if you want to get one. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.